Look, it is not with. Okay. So, hey guys. I'm. I created a new team. And I'm not sure anybody is doing it, but I want to call it Team Sky.
Yeah, you think there is a very fine line between civilization and
I am
anarchy,
also
and the
Team
mayor of
Fishy
Portland
anyways.
is the one that basically blurred that line. So now
Can't believe that 5-year-old kid, and he actually is 5.
It seems like much too
One of my friends told me.
But
well, Greg, Dana mentioned
yeah, I'm not
anarchy.
sure the Team Sky is going to
The
be
problem
cooler
with
than
anarchy is
Team Fishy
eventually
anyways,
you're going to run into a law that you
worth a
actually
shot.
think should be enforced.
Yeah.
And then it's too late because the law has been undercut. So
I'm thinking I'm going to play a few rounds of actual playing,
and what we
but
see
I'm
in some
going
of
to
these
do
northwestern
cars only
northwestern
challenge.
cities. Well, where is the proper line between peaceful protests and what we're seeing, the lawlessness?
Anyone can see that line.
So, yeah.
It's called violence. It's called destruction of property. It's called intimidating and abusing the elderly. When an elderly woman is trying to put out a fire and they harass
y'all
her,
just hate
when another
Corona.
elderly woman's trying to protect the police and they throw paint on her. Look, half a dozen videos, including what you just saw. So basically,
it's annoying.
His denial of this that perpetuated the evil that has created this mess.
I don't get why.
New York Times is admitting they were wrong. I wish today was like a we can swear day, because I really want to.
It's a bad arena.
That mayor, if you looked up pile of crap in the dictionary, Ted Wheeler's face would be right there, because he is legitimately a pile of crap for abdicating his moral spine, his leadership, which has allowed all of this to happen. I know that I'm just saying what Dana said, but louder.
Okay, I'll clean it.
I'm going to kind of
Team Dylan.
Juan, I'm going to try to synthesize Dana's point with Greg's point.
I haven't even landed
the mayor inserted presidential politics, and we've heard Democrats
and I haven't even tried to go do the rocket thing, so
where is the criticism on the left for shooting lasers and attempting to blind police officers for hurting innocent victims, including ones using a walker? Why not? Are we just not hearing it? Is it there and the media is not covering it? Where is the outrage on the left?
Okay.
Well, I think you just heard it from Ted Wheeler. I mean, you know, people here say, oh, Ted Wheeler was negligent or something, but I think he's very clear, Trey, in saying that what those people were doing was violent and it was potentially murder. He used the word murder, that it was wrong. So I think that's pretty clear line. I think people disagree about, well, he should have been tougher earlier in the life. But I don't think there's much disagreement from left or right when it comes to people who set a fire and trap people in the building. I just think that's illegal, it's wrong, it's immoral on so many levels. So I just don't think it's a political divide there. I do think that he's also right when he says that the Trump campaign wants those videos. And he's trying to use that to say to these people who are engaged in violent behavior, hey, are you supporting Trump? Because Trump wants to undermine the power of the peaceful protest in this country, and the way to do it is to punish people who are misbehaving and engaged in illegal activity. So I think he's right on both counts.
How dare you?
There's a left-right divide over condemnation of
never shoot a girl skin.
Well, Juan, I guess my question is, waiting until attempted murder is on the table is a long time to wait. I mean, you got to jump over a lot of other crimes, arson and assault, to get to attempted murder. Where was the criticism 30 days ago, 45 days ago? I mean, everybody is against murder for the most part. How about the other stuff leading up to it?
Anyways,
you know, this is about, again, local control, and I think that Ted Wheeler is pretty popular. His citizens saw him as containing this rather than pouring accelerant on it, which is what we saw when you had federal agents from Customs out of place, showing up for no reason and exacerbating a difficult situation for local officials.
Kennedy, let me ask you this.
There's a battle.
I did some quick research. Minneapolis is 1,700 miles from the Pacific Northwest. what does a state local police officer committing a crime against an innocent citizen in Minnesota have to do with what we are seeing in the Pacific Northwest?
No.
For those of us who like causal connectivity, what is the connection between what happened?
I'm out of wood. Don't bully me. Don't bully me. I might have lost some damage.
There's no longer action at a distance here, and whatever movement and whatever momentum was created in the murder and the way of George Floyd, that is completely dissipated in Portland. And that's why I call Ted Wheeler the nutless wonder.
Ready up.
It's a beautiful city. It's disgusting what's happening because Ted Wheeler is walking around going, hey, this is really bad, you guys. Someone should do something about it.
I don't get what that's.
Ted, you're the someone. You're the guy who's supposed to be leading your city. You're the guy who's supposed to be ensuring that there is safety so people can protest. So when there are a list of things that people want changed in their cities with their community policing, you can achieve them. You can't when we have what's going on. And now, it is so absurd. I think that Ted Wheeler is a Trump operative. I think he has laid back so long and let his city burn because he knows it is a gift to the Trump campaign. That is the only way to explain it. And I feel Greg's frustration, and every business owner, and every cop, and every person with a family who wants to live a good life in a beautiful city, and they absolutely cannot because it is hijacked. And for those of you who are peaceful protesters, and I see a lot of my friends on Facebook and Twitter posting images from the protests they go to where they feel like they're accomplishing something, you better differentiate yourself from the people who are trying to commit murder. And if you don't, that's on you.
Well, I was listening carefully, and I think I heard a mayor's race in your future. Stick around, the fastest up.
I'm not gonna let they're too risky.
Our jobs are fleeing the country. They're going to Mexico. They're going to many other countries. You look at what China is doing to our country in terms of making our product. They're devaluing their currency, and there's nobody in our government to fight them. And we have a very good fight, and we have a winning fight because they're using our country as a piggy bank to rebuild China, and many other countries are doing the same thing. So we're losing our good jobs, so many of them. When you look at what's happening in Mexico, a friend of mine who builds plants said it's the 8th wonder of the world. They're building some of the biggest plants anywhere in the world, some of the most sophisticated, some of the best plants. With the United States, as you said, not so much. So Ford is leaving. You see that, their small car division.
What is that sound?
Thousands of jobs, leaving Michigan, leaving Ohio. They're all leaving, and we can't allow it to happen anymore. As far as child care is concerned, and so many other things, I think Hillary and I agree on that. We probably disagree a little bit as to numbers and amounts and what we're going to do, but perhaps we'll be talking about that later. But we have to stop our jobs from being stolen from us. We have to stop our companies from leaving the United States, and
those cars are fast.
All of their people. All you have to do is take a look.
And I'm getting hit by a car. What the heck?
Indianapolis. They left 1,500 people. They're going to Mexico. So many hundreds and hundreds of companies are doing this. We cannot let it happen. Under my plan,
how dare he?
Reducing taxes tremendously, from 35% to 15% for companies, small and big businesses.
It's playing music.
It's going to be a job creator like we haven't seen since Ronald Reagan. It's going to be a beautiful thing to watch. Companies will come, they will build, they will expand, new companies will start, and I look very, very much forward to doing it. We have to renegotiate our trade deals, and we have to stop these countries from stealing our companies and our jobs. Secretary Clinton, would you like to respond?
Well, I think that trade is an important issue. Of course, we are 5% of the world's population. We have to trade with the other 95%. And we need to have smart, fair trade deals. We also, though, need to have a tax system that rewards work and not just financial transactions. And the kind of plan that Donald has put forth would be trickle-down economics all over again. In fact, it would be the most extreme version, the biggest tax cuts for the top percent of the people in this country that we've ever had. I call it trumped up trickle-down, because that's exactly what it would be. That is not how we grow the economy. We just have a different view about what's best for growing the economy, how we make investments that will actually produce jobs and rising incomes. I think we come at it from somewhat different perspectives. I understand that. You know, Donald was very fortunate in his life, and that's all to his benefit. He started his business with $14 million borrowed from his father, and he really believes that the more you help wealthy people, the better off we'll be, and that everything will work out from there. I don't buy that. I have a different experience. My father was a small businessman. He worked really hard. He printed drapery fabrics on long tables where he pulled out those fabrics, and he went down with a silk screen and dumped the paint in and took the squeegee and kept going. And so what I believe is the more we can do for the middle class, the more we can invest in you, your education, your skills, your future, the better we will be off and the better we'll grow. That's the kind of economy I want us to see again.
Let me follow up with Mr. Trump if I can. You've talked about creating 25 million jobs, and you've promised to bring back millions of jobs for Americans. How are we going to bring back the industries that have left this country for cheaper labor overseas? How specifically are you going to tell American manufacturers that they have to come back?
Well, for one thing, and before we start on that, my father gave me a very small loan in 1975, and I built it into a company that's worth many, many billions of dollars with some of the greatest assets in the world. And I say that only because that's the kind of thinking that our country needs. Our country's in deep trouble. We don't know what we're doing when it comes to devaluations, and all of these countries all over the world, especially China, they're the best ever at it. What they're doing to us is a very, very sad thing. So we have to do that. We have to renegotiate our trade deals. Unless they're taking our jobs, they're giving incentives, they're doing things that frankly we don't do. Let me give you the example of Mexico. They have a VAT tax, a little different system. When we sell into Mexico, there's a tax. When they sell in automatic, 16% approximately. When they sell into us, there's no tax. It's a defective agreement. It's been defective for a long time, many years, but the politicians haven't done anything about it. Now, in all fairness to Secretary Clinton...
No, don't do that.
Is that okay? Good. I want you to be very happy. It's very important to me. But in all fairness to Secretary Clinton, when she started talking about this, it was really very recently. She's been doing this for 30 years. And why hasn't she made the agreements better? The NAFTA agreement is defective just because of the tax and many other reasons, but just because of the fact that Secretary Clinton and others, politicians, should have been doing this for years. Not right now because of the fact that we've created a movement. They should have been doing this for years. What's happened to our jobs and our country and our economy generally is, look, we owe $20 trillion. We cannot do it any longer, Lester.
Wait, how do you see me?
How do you specifically bring back jobs? American manufacturers, how do you make them bring the jobs back?
Well, the first thing you do is don't let the jobs leave. The companies are leaving. I could name, there are thousands of them. They're leaving, and they're leaving in bigger numbers than ever. And
yeah, I guess I'm gonna do cards on Calvin a few times. So that big truck is that I don't even know what I'm saying. If you're a bully on Fortnite, don't be. I'm just talking to myself, guys. I'm not talking about you. We just think that is. Bang, bang. Oh, that means that's a PS4.
Have
Okay, so that's a PS4 player.
Your help with.
So
I'm also going to share a loophole that I discovered in.
For some reason, it's only PS4 players. Like, I don't know.
If I didn't send in the troops, if I didn't send in the great people from Homeland Security, you have courthouses and post offices and everything else burned down, blown up. And we may send in something else because you know what? They've been rioting now for 70 days.
Meanwhile, if you are participating in this activity, you are not being a prop for the re-election campaign of Donald Trump.
Of course there wouldn't be cars right here. Yes, well, first of all, it's the agency and
during this campaign. You don't want to be part of that, then don't show up.
Meanwhile, Customs and Borders Protection Commissioner Mark Morgan today reacting to Wheeler's partisan viewpoint.
Also just landed at the gas
station.
He was
blaming the federal presidents for the violence, and now that that's shifted to the local police, now he's still blaming the president for these thugs, what they're doing, still in running America's largest cities. The Dems continue to demean police officers, pushing to defund departments all over the country. One of Joe Biden's potential VP picks, Congresswoman Karen Bass, refusing to denounce the defund the police movement, instead rebranding it as a, quote, refund the communities movement.
The
Trump administration today drawing more support for law enforcement, expanding their Operation Legend into both St. Louis and Memphis.
No! No!
Guiding the country towards the great American comeback.
He just killed me through
today reporting 1.8 million jobs created in July. That beat expectations. Under the president's leadership, the country has added 9.3 million jobs since the height of the China virus pandemic in April. The unemployment rate also showing signs of recovery, falling to 10.2%. Today's report also showing unemployment falling once again for Black, Hispanic, Asian, and female workers. Wages rising, meanwhile, 4.8% year over year, and big gains last month in manufacturing, retail, and the leisure and hospitality sectors. Joining me now to take up today's report, Labor Secretary Eugene Scalia. Secretary, good to see you again. Thanks for being here. It is remarkable that in just 3 months, we have recovered well over 40% of the jobs that were lost because of the pandemic. That's a pretty good record.
It's been a really very strong run, David, and much better than people were projecting back in March and April. And we've now had the 3 strongest months on record for creating new jobs.
I actually get
to 9.3 million
enough
over that
money,
period of time,
or if we get enough money to buy a face cam,
notable in part because it was a hard month in some places. 3 of our largest states had to tighten up a little bit on the reopening because they were seeing a rise in cases. That's California, Texas, and Florida. And yet, despite a bit of a setback I think we had in those states, nationally we still continued to add jobs and get unemployment really on the cusp of 10%. People were asking me earlier in the year, when might we see 10% unemployment again? When next year? And I said, well, I think we can get there this year. But even I was not projecting that we would be on the verge of that by now. There is work to do. A lot of people still to get back to work, but it's great anyway.
Is there a possibility that the renewed lockdowns in some areas of the country, you mentioned the spike in cases in California, that they may show up in next month's unemployment figures to the negative side?
How you have legs?
Well, let me say first, David, it's just important that we all continue to take seriously the precautions that the task force and public health authorities have been doing with respect to distancing, hygiene, masks in many circumstances, and the like. We got a warning.
You're trying to go into that house?
Too many lives were lost there. And so we have to continue to be disciplined. But my hope is that states to the north of those that had those problems have taken a lesson from that, are going to be more careful with the opening, and I think we can have a very strong August if people heed that lesson.
Forgive me, unlike in March and April, when there was a consensus, at least certainly among Democratic governors, that completely locked down the economy, just stop it, a dead stop. now Americans, I think, are convinced, even in some of the blue states, that we can. Americans are smart enough and determined enough and innovative enough to figure out a way of coping with the virus in a sensible and responsible way and keeping the economy open. Don't you think?
Absolutely. We're not going to lock down again. We can reopen safely. It does take certain precautions.
Got him.
But with those precautions, we can do it. And the alternative is just unacceptable from a health perspective. Among others, we know the health consequences of prolonged shutdowns are grave. And we're now seeing that it's eminently possible to reopen safely.
No, that's not a good idea.
And you know, as I look at the job numbers we had today, by the way, I do see a number of sectors where we have opportunities to bring hundreds of thousands of people back to work in the months ahead. Healthcare, for example. There's still 800,000 fewer jobs than a few months ago. But that's a growing sector of the economy. Just one last point there, David. More than 80% of the people who lost their jobs in the last few months still said they think it's a temporary job loss. 80%. That's encouraging too.
It is, but there are still a lot of folks unemployed in America, far too many, and there are efforts to help them. Of course, you have the federal unemployment assistance program. It's on top of the state unemployment checks. It's now $600. A lot of people argue that that's too much, that a lot of people are getting paid more than they got for working, and that shouldn't be. But the president wants to continue it since it ran out this week. And apparently Democrats are too involved in playing political games that at least go along in this one effort to really help Americans. The president may, in fact, use an executive order in order to continue with that program. Larry Kudlow talked about it earlier today. Let's play that tape.
Did Amelia ever be on my phone?
As I said, the legal drafting is complete.
I always charge this to 100, but then she, several times you charge it. Take it off.
To inform the public.
Well, I'm gone.
If satisfied with what the work's been done. There's a whole variety of issues and federal powers that are at the president's disposal, and he will use them. You can bet on it.
Why?
So, Secretary, Larry says you can bet on it. We've heard that as early as this evening, we may see signs of an executive order on that. What do you know?
Well, what I know first is that this president has been extraordinary in creating jobs for the American people, and that is going to continue to be his top priority. But second, we do recognize that there are millions of Americans that remain unemployed.
You know, in there, get a car, and then try to kill
During the Great Recession,
that sounds like
10, 12 years ago, $25 a week was the federal supplement to what the states gave. What the president proposed, and the Senate Republicans proposed, was $200 a week. And they also said, while we negotiate, let's leave the $600 in place for another week. The Democrats said no way. So they stopped that $600 a week benefit last week. And the president's going to step in here and help the unemployed Americans if the Senate Democrats continue to block this. Larry's right. There's a careful look being given at action by executive order because the president is determined to help the people who remain unemployed by one means or another.
Very quickly, will we see that kind of executive order if there's no deal before the end of the weekend?
I think it's very possible, David.
Secretary Eugene Scalia, great to see you again. Thank you for being here. Appreciate it. Coming up next, Jerry Nadler and the gang get some harassing President Trump from the judicial branch. We'll take that up and more with Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. And we'd also like to promote Lou's new book, The Trump Century, How Our President Changed the Course of History Forever. You can order your copy or copies at thetrumpcentury.com, Amazon.com, and BarnesandNobles.com.
Okay, that's just...
Look, if you haven't found your free 72-hour survival food kit, time is running out. We keep running out of our bigger kits for weeks at a time. But right now, we can still ship 72-hour survival food kits. In fact, because we're doing everything we can to get you as much survival food as possible, we're going to ship an extra 72-hour food kit free with your order.
That's like the worst decision
right here in the
I
closet,
just think.
with no refrigeration, with no special...
Judicial branch. We'll take that up and more with Judicial Watch President Tom Fitton. And we'd also like to promote Lou's new book, The Trump Century, How Our President Changed the Course of History Forever. You can order your copy or copies at thetrumpcentury.com, Amazon.com, and BarnesandNobles.com. The president tweeting moments ago about the China virus and talks with the Democrats. Quote, Pelosi and Schumer only interested in bailout money for poorly run Democrat cities and states.
What is that
Nothing
sound?
to do with
Glitch?
China virus. Want $1 trillion. No interest. We are going a different
I need
way.
to get, dang it.
And we also have breaking news on this. A leading Senate rhino is breaking with President Trump on mail-in voting. Senate Majority Whip John Thune says he is unconcerned about potential vote fraud. Thune telling reporters he doesn't agree with the president that mail-in balloting is going to lead to massive voter fraud or a rigged election. And more political activism from the judicial branch. The U.S. Court of Appeals in D.C. ruling that House Judiciary Democrats have legal standing to sue the Trump administration and enforce
don't bully me, don't bully me, don't bully me, don't bully me, don't come here.
The court overturned the decision made earlier this year by a three-judge panel that determined the committee did not have authority to force McGahn to testify. Joining me now is Tom Fitton. He is the president of Judicial Watch. His new book, A Republic Under Assault, the less ongoing attack on American freedom, is available for pre-order, and you better get it quick because they are going right on things. Tom, great to see you. Thanks for coming in. Appreciate it. John Thune, let me first talk about him contradicting the president on mail-in voting. Does he not realize what happened in New York, where 20%, actually it was 21% of the ballots that were mailed in had to be disqualified for one reason or another? Clearly, a fifth of the electorate being disqualified in such a way shows that there are obvious signs of at least irregularities, if not outright fraud.
Well, there are two issues with this mail-in ballot push. First of all, 43 million ballots are going to be mailed without anyone asking for it. And on top of that, you'll have people asking for ballots through the absentee ballot process.
By the way, that's a done deal. That's going to happen.
People are going to get those ballots whether they ask for them or not. A percentage of them are going to be thrown out because signatures don't match. They get there too late. They're challenged for other reasons. And of course, many of them will never get there at all because the Postal Service is the Postal Service. So in 2016, 319,000 absentee mail ballots were thrown out. We can expect multiples of that this year. And I'm afraid we won't even be able to count them all given what happened in New York. So rather than pretending that mail-in ballots are a panacea here, we should recognize it to be a threat to free and fair elections and encourage Americans to vote in person. I'm concerned. Frankly, leftists should be concerned. Those on the right should be concerned. Democrats and Republicans, because it's not just the presidency at stake. You have all these other races that are going to be thrown up in the air because they're unable to actually even count the ballots coming in. And forget about the ballot harvesting opportunities that are going to be out there because of this $43 million swamp in the mail with all those ballots.
One thing you didn't mention is the time that it takes, even under the best of circumstances. I mean, in New York, it took 2 months to get these things resolved. It wasn't resolved. I mean, you had this unresolved question about what happened to over 20% of the. But 2 months now, it was 20 years ago. A lot of us still remember like it was yesterday what happened with the Bush-Gore situation. That went on and went all the way to the Supreme Court. I mean, that's what we're in for, right?
Judicial Watch was counting ballots, doing an audit of that election and found fraud. In California, people don't understand this. In California, they are going to count ballots at least 17 days after the election. That's their rule. And they're swapping the mails with ballots there. I'm concerned, David, the election is going to be swamped. Our election system is going to be swamped. The mails are going to be overwhelmed. We won't know who won. It will go to the House. It will go to the Senate. You'll have Congress get involved and decide in the end who won. And that necessarily isn't going to be a person who actually would have or should have won based on an honest accounting. This is an awful situation, unprecedented in American history.
You know, by the way, I should let the audience know that Judicial Watch has done an enormous amount of research into voter fraud and what's going to happen with the mail-in vote. So we are indebted to you for that. I want to talk briefly because there are two other issues I want to get to. The D.C. Court of Appeals overturning a 3-judge panel that decided that you cannot bring Don McGahn in for questioning in front of Jerry Nadler and his Judiciary Committee, but that was overturned. So what's the status of that?
Well, they're going to fight over whether to now question McGahn. It's not, the fight isn't over, it just goes to lower court again. And your viewers shouldn't get distracted by the legal back and forth. They should focus on the fact the coup cabal in the House hasn't given up their dreams of impeaching President Trump.
Right.
That's why they're pursuing McGahn.
That's exactly
they're looking to see, hey, maybe we can get McGahn in and see what he'll say, and maybe we can get another impeachment coup attack.
It's impeachment number 2 or 3 or 4 or whatever this is now. Lost count. All right, I just got one more issue, which is Susan Rice, because again, Judicial Watch has stepped in and got her to answer some questions. Very interesting answers, I thought, on things like Benghazi. Remember that extraordinary Sunday morning when she appeared on just about every news show there was to suggest that a video caused a well-planned terrorist attack, which led to the killing of a U.S. ambassador and some other brave men on that day.
Just go away.
Yeah, she gave us answers under oath in writing. She said she couldn't recall who gave her the talking points for that episode of lies about Benghazi. She can't recall meetings even after the attack with her colleagues at the United Nations or the State Department. She didn't recall much. I think it was 18 I don't recall. And, you know, it's that type of answer that Hillary Clinton gave us 25 times, I don't recall, in answers to us, that a court said, you know what, she has to come in and testify under oath, and now she's appealing now.
I made a
Susan Rice is not only involved in Obamagate scandal, she cut her teeth on Benghazi.
Tom,
this truck is so slow.
I really mean it. Thank
I'm
you very
gonna
much for
take
being
this,
here
even
tonight.
though
Appreciate
storm's
it.
almost gonna
I'd
come.
love to hear your thoughts on all of this. Share your comments.
I might not make it.
On Twitter at Lou Dobbs. Like him on Facebook. And follow him on Instagram at Lou Dobbs Tonight. Lou will be back on Monday.
Yeah, I'm
definitely. Vacations. And his special guest on Monday will be Vice President Mike Pence.
Okay, the shirt on. I'm just gonna drive.
Coming up next, House Speaker Nancy Pelosi suffering somewhat of a meltdown after being challenged by a member of the left-wing national media who went a little bit off script. The Washington Times joining us with that and a lot more right after a break. President Trump is keeping American jobs in America. The federally owned Tennessee Valley Authority rehiring 100 tech workers whose jobs were being outsourced. Made official just 3 days after the president fired the chairman.
I have been put the
President Trump's actions putting an end to one outsourcing scheme when 16 million Americans remain unemployed. One Republican senator, however, is still pushing to bring in more foreign workers. Senator Mike Lee pushing his Fair for High-Skilled Immigrants Act, which would flood green card lines with cheap tech workers from India and China for the next decade. Lee tried passing his bill in the Senate this week by unanimous consent. That's without any hearing or debate. He was stopped this time by Senator Rick Scott. Well, the Washington Post so-called fact-checker Glenn Kessler tried to spin the Biden blunder on black Americans. Listen.
What you all know, but most know, unlike the African-American community, with notable exceptions, the Latino community is an incredibly diverse community with incredibly different attitudes about different things.
Dad, I got these.
It's okay. The black community doesn't have, quote, diversity of thought. Kessler from the Washington Post tweeted out, if you listen to the clip, he didn't actually say this. Well, just hours later, Biden tweeted that he didn't mean to, quote, suggest the African-American community is... Again, this is the Washington Post fact-check so-called. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, meanwhile, flipping out on PBS anchor Judy Woodruff. Pelosi apparently expecting another softball interview from the left-wing national media had this reaction when Woodruff asked why didn't you tell me yet to find common ground with Republicans to pass a second stimulus bill.
Yeah, but I'm focused on playing.
Democrats want more money, Republicans want
a lot less. They're saying they're willing to show flexibility, and they're also saying a lot of the money that was passed in the spring, Madam Speaker, has not even been spent yet. So, you wouldn't be an advocate for them, baby. You wouldn't be an advocate for them. No,
it's not true, but I can tell because, well,
for your position.
The skin color?
We have a bill.
Well, joining me now is Charlie Hurt, Washington Times opinion editor and Fox business contributor. And this is going to be fun, Charlie. After all these years, who knew? Who knew that Judy Woodruff was actually a spy for the Republicans masquerading as a left-wing journalist, right?
No, it's truly incredible. But honestly, this is how these people
a lot of people are wanting Madison on that.
That goes on in Nancy Pelosi's mind to actually think that she could get away with accusing somebody like Judy Woodruff, a nice lady and everything, but hardly some sort of rocker conservative, or even somebody who I would think
so loud. I don't want
Republicans even fair shake on most days. But
sorry,
this
mate.
Kind of the mentality that all these Democrats have, and it's what they've sort of grown used to from everybody.
Get away! Don't bully me.
Got their thumb on the scale.
Sorry, mate.
Charlie, it really does remind
and I'm dead.
That I remember,
wait, no, they have a pistol too.
But just on the cusp of my time, it really does remind me of the McCarthy era, because if you stray from the orthodoxy, which you're supposed to say just 1 millimeter, you're immediately accused of being a dirty fill-in-the-blank. In the McCarthy era, was a communist. Now it's a Republican, or even worse, a Trump supporter. That's sort
pistol
of
battle.
You said she doesn't get away with it. She does get away with it most of the time.
Correct.
She does, but the reason she gets away with it is because the entire media, 95% of the media out there, is in her pocket, and they're doing.
Sorry, mate. I had no choice.
Being for her. And stop and think about it for a minute. People talk about how much trouble Donald Trump is in the polls, and you know, there are obviously some polls where the Trump campaign would like to be doing better. But if you were to add up the amount of negative the amount of negative media that Donald Trump suffers through every single week, it is astonishing. Right. And this is a good reminder of what it is that President Trump is up against every single week, and will be throughout the election.
I'm gonna need a.
He is up against a true monolith in the media that is absolutely opposed to him, opposed to his supporters.
And to completely supportive of Biden. I mean, as we mentioned, this Washington Post fact checker, it's extraordinary. Even if they have to cover up for Biden's mistakes, or try to, and lie in order to do that. I mean, this guy said that essentially Biden didn't say something that
I'm gonna beat you with a pistol. No, not. Dang it.
I mean, that was extraordinary. Using the lie to cover up something that Biden actually did. I mean, it's crazy. Let me move on if I can to the Democrats, and they're pushing this attack on the NRA, trying to completely dismantle the NRA, which, by the way, has a membership, I believe, of about 20% of the members are registered Democrats. It's extraordinary that during a crime...
Hey, baby kitty.
The two things
You're such a cute kitty. You're such a handsome baby.
Right now are police to protect them, and if they can't get police protection, guns to protect them. They want to take away the two things that will protect Americans from this crime wave. Does that make any political sense?
Yeah, I really don't know what it is that they're going after here, and if they think that they're just going after the National Rifle Association because they don't like the NRA and they try to make the NRA this evil boogeyman, okay, whatever. The reason that the NRA has the SWAT that it has in Washington has nothing to do with the NRA. It has to do with millions and millions of law-abiding American citizens who rely on gun ownership to protect themselves. I've been in a lot of gun stores in the last couple of months. Anybody who's been into a gun store lately knows that there's hardly any guns for sale. They're flying off the shelf. And the number of first-time gun owners who are flocking to gun stores, and the diversity of those people who are going in there to buy guns, again, not to commit crimes, not to do anything, but to protect their families and themselves and their neighbors.
No, yes, you can do that. No, except for that, I only done that once.
It's an amazingly tone-deaf thing, and you know, I don't know what the energy of New York is thinking about doing this, but I can tell you this: it absolutely helps.
Hey, did you grab one of those frost turds? Yeah, he can have it anyways. But if you poop in the house,
very quickly, one final point where I think the Democrats are also making a serious political
then just shall be mine.
Pelosi denying Americans, those unemployed Americans who are receiving federal subsidies, not all of which I happen to agree on, by the way.
Someone just went savage on
that $600 in addition to state unemployment checks. However, the president has said, look, I want to continue it until we figure out something better to do with this program.
Dang,
the Democrats are so obstinate, they won't even go along with the president on this. He may have to have an executive order in order to make sure that those checks continue, despite the fact that they brought out legislation this week. Don't you think Democrats are also making a mistake here? Quickly.
Yeah, absolutely. Democrats are playing chicken.
Don't even try it. Don't even try. Don't even try to take it.
Global pandemic. They're playing political chicken. And
don't try to kill me. No.
Dang.
Stop that. I just try to be friends, and everybody be bullying me.
Unemployed Americans.
Yes.
If they were playing
doing that
with themselves, I wouldn't mind, but they're playing it with the lives of millions of unemployed
Americans. No, that's not what you do. That's not what you do. You're a bad person.
Seems to have some trouble getting tough on China.
No.
We'll ask General Jack Keane about
hey,
that
this person
in just a few
just randomly shooting.
And a reminder about Lou's new book, The Trump, How Our President Changed the Course of History Forever.
Is he fighting?
It's available for pre-order now at thetrumpcentury.com, Amazon.com, and BarnesandNoble.com. Stay with us. We're coming right back. Welcome back. I'm David Asman, sitting in for the vacationing Lou Dobbs. Lou will be back on Monday. And we have some breaking news now. Special agents from Immigration and Customs Enforcement and Homeland Security Investigations uncovering a seriously 2 HP cross-border tunnel near Yuma, Arizona. The tunnel, extending more than 1,300 feet, includes ventilation, water lines, a rail system, and electrical wiring. Yuma's chief patrol agent calling the tunnel the most sophisticated ever found in U.S. history. Meanwhile, Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, Mark Esper, speaking with the Chinese
stay out, don't, no.
Between U.S. and China, Esper called for more transparency from Beijing on the China virus. Defense Secretary also, quote, expressed concern about China's activities in the South China Sea, calling on China to abide by international law. Joining me now to take all this up, General Jack Keane. He is former Vice Chief of Staff of the U.S. Army, retired 4-star general, and a Fox Business senior strategic analyst. General Keane, always a pleasure. Thanks for coming in. Expressed concern. Now, forgive me, but is that really the best that the Secretary of Defense could say about the position of China on this issue?
I'll follow you back.
Oh, David, I wouldn't wordsmith it. I mean, well, here's what Esper's been doing, in contrast to his two predecessors. He's increased the military activities significantly in the Indo-Pacific region, assisted also by the Admiral Davison, who took over from his predecessor about a year and a half ago. I mean, I'm talking about a dramatic increase. 2 carrier strike groups in the South China Sea at the same time. Bombers and reconnaissance aircraft flying into the sector from out of the region. That's why they're having this conversation, because the United States has accelerated our military presence. We're doing it largely, obviously, to get the Chinese Communist Party and the People's Liberation Army, which controls all their services, attention, but also we're doing it for the benefit of our allies. And the second thing that he has done, again, this is quite an acceleration from his predecessors, is he is sweeping the service budgets and taking money from them and prioritizing military capabilities that we desperately need to have an effective military deterrence against China. And if you lay out China's capabilities and the United States military capabilities in the Indo-Pacific region, we come up short. And everybody knows this. All the war games have suggested we got a real problem. And this secretary is doing something about it. So I think you're stretching this quite a bit.
So in other words, carrying a big stick is more to the point. Should be more of our focus than softness of words here. But I'm just wondering, in addition to the military actions being taken to try to, as best as we can, to ramp up what we allowed to be so diminished over the past 10 years or so in the South China Sea and Taiwan and all those areas around there. We are also taking some considerable economic.
Wait, why are you following me? I'm supposed to follow you.
Including today, Carrie Lam, she's the administrator of Hong Kong. She's essentially a puppet of China. I think it's fair to say. Sanctions against her. Are those
I'm a great director. Not really.
These individuals and holds them accountable.
I'm gonna kill one of you.
Chinese officials that have
got him. Got it. Get it. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Don't kill me. Don't hit 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 me. No! Run. That was the wrong choice. That was a mistake. That was a huge mistake.
I don't like the fact that it's reported all around the world in the media.
No. Hey, stop that.
Do have their place. I mean, they're not going to change China's behavior.
Almost out of gas.
What I applaud this administration for doing, using the China pandemic, so to speak, and crushing Hong Kong's autonomy, the administration is stitching together a broad coalition and pushing back very comprehensively and strategically on the Chinese Communist Party. While they had intended to do that from the outset, the focus was initially, on trade imbalance and intellectual property. Now it's a very comprehensive all-of-government approach. And I think we're going to stitch together sort of a grand strategy with our allies and partners, somewhat similar to what we have with the Soviet Union post-war.
I was just going to say, it's a little early to say this, but I think of Reagan's insistence against policy that preceded it by 40 years that we can win the Cold War with the Soviet Union, and we did win the Cold War with the Soviet Union, but it took a while. It took 2 full terms and a half because it was within the Bush administration that the Berlin Wall came down. Is it conceivable? Does this administration have that same long-term strategy for dealing with China?
Well, I think it's been slow in coming. They put together a plan initially right at the beginning with a very effective national security strategy. A lesser effective national defense strategy, in my view, was on a commission for a year to look at it. And they were uneven in their execution. But, experience has helped. Certainly the CCP's behavior, their malign behavior, has certainly been part of the story. But I think they are absolutely moving in the right direction. The whole team is moving comprehensively with them. We were fragmented in the national security team going back a year and a half ago.
General, I'm getting a wrap, but I have to ask the question. We've got an election coming up. If the Trump team loses this election and the Biden team comes in, could all of the work that's happened to push back against the Chinese over the past 4 years be forgotten and forgotten in history?
Well, I'm not going to deal with the election. The only thing I can say is I believe the policy we have now is moving in the right direction. And anybody who would continue that policy would make sense to me. But I'm not going to get involved in where the politics are.
I understand, but of course we have someone running on the other side who actually was with the previous administration, so we must assume he'd continue what was done when he was working with President Obama. General Keane, good to see you, my friend. Thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it. Meanwhile, Attorney General William Barr yesterday asked his driver to turn around so he could get out and thank a group of pro-police protesters. DOJ spokeswoman Carrie Cooper tweeted a video of Barr taking photos, bumping elbows, and thanking the group for their support. Coming up next, the Supreme Court producing decisions in their past term that appall religious conservatives. Well, now Vice President Mike Pence is taking a shot at Chief Justice John Roberts. We'll talk to Robert Jeffress about that when we come back. The pastor when we return. Wall Street stocks finishing mixed. The Dow up 46 points, the S&P up 2, the Nasdaq down 97. Volume on the big board, 4 billion shares. The Dow up nearly 4%. To cap off the week, the S&P and Nasdaq up more than 2%. Crude oil finishing at $41.52 a barrel. And a reminder to listen to Lou's reports 3 times a day, coast to coast, on the Salem Radio Network. Well, Vice President Mike Pence venting his frustration with Chief Justice John Roberts. Pence condemning Roberts for siding with the Supreme Court's liberal justices in a string of recent decisions, including some against religious conservatives. Listen.
We have great respect for the extension of the Supreme Court, but Chief Justice John Roberts has been a disappointment to conservatives, whether it be the Obamacare decision or whether it be a spate of recent decisions all the way through Calvary Chapel. But in several cases out of the Supreme Court are a reminder of just how important this election is for the future of the Supreme Court.
Joining us now is Pastor Robert Jeffress, member of the White House Faith Initiative, pastor of the First Baptist Church of Dallas, and a Fox News contributor and author of the new book, Praying for America, available everywhere right now. Pastor, great to see you. I'm wondering if you share the Vice President's disappointment with Justice Roberts.
I do. The Vice President was being a lot nicer than I would have been in that interview. Look, Roberts has done many disappointing things in an abortion ruling, but especially in this Nevada church situation, a shutdown of this church, in which the Supreme Court and John Roberts actually said it's permissible to gather together at Caesar's Palace in order to gamble, but you can't gather together in a church in order to worship God. That is an abomination. And look, we know there's no such thing, David, as a sure thing when it comes to picking Supreme Court justices, but the odds are tremendously better of getting a conservative justice with a President Trump than with a President Biden.
All right, let me move over to what's happening on our city streets, because it does intersect with religion in a strange way. First of all, most Democrats,
what is the race car? I'm just gonna get a gun if I do not get choice.
Condemning anything that the protesters so-called have done. In fact, President Obama used the opportunity of the funeral of Congressman John Lewis in a church to get political about the protesters. Let me play the tape and get your reaction.
So as lawless may be done, but we can witness our federal government sending agents to use tear gas and batons against peaceful demonstrators.
I landed on Sky as well.
So-called peaceful demonstrators, according to President Obama.
Sorry guys, I'm just talking to this. I landed on Sky as well.
Of course, President Obama once ridiculed Americans for clinging to religion.
Okay.
But here they are. What do you think this is all about? What does this tell you about these people, that they're burning Bibles?
Look, David, there is a great contrast between the peaceful civil rights protest of John Lewis and Martin Luther King Jr., who actually based their protest on the teachings of the Bible, compared to these anarchists who are basing what they're doing on rebellion against the Bible, burning Bibles, burning American flags, burning down police stations. And look, I'm not saying that all Democrats support this kind of action, but you know, there's a Bible verse that says, bad company corrupts good morals. And when the Democrats hang around Antifa and Black Lives Matter and do not condemn these kind of anarchist activities, they are complicit in them by remaining silent about them.
But you know, it does intrigue me that there is this attempt. There was a Black Lives Matter leader who about a month ago suggested that statues of Jesus, if they look too white, should be torn down. I mean, it's just extraordinary, and in fact, I'm hearing from pastors and some priests.
Hold on.
The desecration of these statues
Dad, come here.
And Mary are being
this is what Aunt Shauna did. Just look. She did this with her kids, right?
That's exactly right.
Well, what is it about?
She did this with her.
Christ and religion.
What, you want to do it?
Protesters, if you will.
Well, listen, I think, quite frankly, I think President Trump hit it out of the ballpark when he talked about Joe Biden and by extension the Democrats by saying they're against God and they're against the Bible. And I think that's not an overstatement. It is no coincidence, David, that 70% of atheists identify as Democrats and only 15% as Republicans. And the Democrat Party has become a godless party. And so that's why we find such animosity against conservative Christians and against the Bible.
The bottom line is that these
anarchists
certainly are taking actions that are hostile to religion in America.
No, bad person.
Before we go to break, about news in the book, The Trump Century, how our president changed the course of history forever. It's available pre-order on thetrumpcentury.com, amazon.com, and barnesandnoble.com. Stay tuned, we'll be right back.
Don't touch my dinner square, no.
I have one question for you. Are you sick of fake news?
I need the bandies.
Are you sick of places like Drip Report going far left? Do you want conservative news, consistent, 100% verified, 100% free? Then you need to go to TaylorReport.com.
Dang it.
Go to TaylorReport.com right now. Subscribe. Also donate. Let's kick the left's butt. Let's take over our country. Let's make real news great again.
Hey guys, welcome to Real Rock, where our channel is focused on exposing the abundant hypocrisy of the left. And we have some serious hypocrisy, or I guess more like something of course, Democrat and media disinformation. Once again, we're talking about Portland. Now, very recently, I made a video clearing up all the confusion between the local government, the governor, and of course, Mayor Ted Wheeler in Portland, claiming that they had a massive victory against the feds and the president. Of course, it was all BS, and they were trying to spin the story to be in their favor. Now, after the feds retreated, or I guess stayed in the federal courthouse, and the Portland State Police had been coalesced together to come into the city of Portland and really start taking care of things. I said in that video that we would be following up on exactly what's been happening here, the aftermath. The way the Democrats are framing this, once again, is completely false, and it must be addressed. They want to blame everything on the president. Wow, what a surprise. The only reason there was any violence at all in Portland is because, of course, the evil orange man deployed his federal troops there. As Kyber mentioned, his Gestapo forces.
You did great.
A completely disingenuous claim, considering 40 minutes prior, the same thing was happening. But now that the feds are gone, the left is
and I got it.
The moment the feds left, everything just became peaceful. There's rainbows in the sky, and of course, racism has been BTFO'd. But this is a complete farce. It's a farce. It's once again a Democrat lie. They are lying to you. And of course, the only person that we need to use as a resource here is Andy Ngo. His Twitter feed has been documenting pretty much everything going on the streets since the feds retreated into the federal courthouse. Portland is still in chaos, still in disarray, except right now the dynamic is between Antifa and the Portland State Police rather than the feds, so the Democrats can't attack the president for it. But I'm going to show you guys exactly what's going on the streets right now, proving to you that the Democratic narrative is a complete lie. And of course, we're going to give out a huge shout out to Andy Ngo, who aggregated all of these stories for me, and to be honest, did a lot of the heavy lifting. But before we get into any of that, please make sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the notification bell to be notified every single time I post a video, since that's by far the best thing to do to support the channel. Follow me on Twitter, links in the description, check out my subscribe star, there's also in the description. And with that out of the way, let's roll the tape. Alright, so Portland, like most of the other cities, has been disbanding its police force, and this is what we're going to start off with before we get into what's going on right now, post-federal pullout. And they did the exact same thing that New York did. What's that? Disable or dismantle their anti-crime units, anti-gang units, essentially. And what do you think happened? Check this out. Police deadly July, domestic violence, suspected love triangle, and gang retaliations among 15 deaths. Portland homicides have completely skyrocketed. Look at this graph. For the entirety of last year, there were 31 homicides in total. And just last month, there were 15. Basically half of the year's quota. So that's the first thing. Before we even get into protests whatsoever, this is Democrat policy. This is Democrat inaction. And this is also what the Democrats don't want you to know. There's a reason why Jerry Nadler said that Antifa is a myth in Washington. And there's also a reason why when Andy Ngo showed up in front of the Senate, the Democrats lied their faces off in a very malicious way. And when Ted Cruz showed a video of everything that was going on the streets in Portland, they left the room. They are lying. And now, of course, speaking of Andy Ngo and speaking of Democrats lying and trying to convince you that what you're seeing is not reality and it's not actually happening, even though your eyeballs are watching the videos all over Twitter for the last month, let's get it from the Homeland Security DHS website itself, dhs.gov. The leftist Democrat narrative is that the moment the feds left, it's been peaceful. And this is true at the Hatfield Federal Courthouse, but not so much elsewhere in Portland. So check this out. So this is the report.
No, you ain't killing me, you ain't killing me, you ain't killing me, you ain't killing me, you ain't killing me.
individuals remained peaceful throughout the course of the night. There were no reported injuries to DHS officers or damage to federal property. DHS officers conducted 0 arrests. Oregon State Police OSP partners did not engage the crowds outside the fence. Just before midnight local time, multiple rioters attempted to break into and burn down the Portland Police Association building, located roughly 4 miles north of the federal courthouse. Around the same time, local law enforcement officers were attacked with parked projectiles. PvP declared an unlawful assembly. After 1 a.m. local time, rioters breached the doors to the building and started a fire inside. According to PPV reports, PPV then declared a riot as its officers worked to disperse the crowd and conducted several subsequent arrests. So that's just on August 5th. It's actually been going on for the last couple nights. The riots have not ended. They've just moved. They've changed the location and they've dispersed all over Portland. They're not specifically all congregating in front of the federal courthouse anymore. The violent rioters, the insurrection groups, are still continuing, and the exact same scenes that we saw at the federal courthouse, whether trying to break through the barricade, break through the boarded up doors and windows, is happening once again. They showed up to the police association building, broke all of the security cameras, because of course, if you're breaking security cameras, you must be doing something illegal, right? That was a peaceful act of peaceful protesters who were just trying to achieve racial justice. But no, they vandalized the building, ripped off the protective wood layer, and tried burning the building down to a crisp. Once again, the exact same thing is happening. And if you guys need proof, there's tweets from Andy Hill over the last couple days showing you exactly what's going on. Check out this one. Overnight on the 5th and 6th of August, another riot was declared by Portland police after Antifa tried to break into the East Precinct far from downtown. They barricaded and set fire to the front of the building. One of the rioters tried to run over officers using a truck. Sounds real peaceful. Antifa rioters came prepared for battling East Portland last night after police dispersed them following the arson attack on the East Precinct. They kept trying to return to attack some more. Their comrades in cars blocked police. And of course, it's all orchestrated. It's pre-planned. It's premeditated, which is the exact same thing that we saw in the federal courthouse. I covered this maybe like 3 weeks or even a month ago at this point, where the only reason the feds were deployed to the federal courthouse in the first place was because Antifa was all over social media declaring that they were going to do exactly that, try to siege the courthouse. And then, of course, the DHS responded by sending federal agents. And remember, a huge catalyst for them targeting the Hatfield courthouse in the first place was that Damian Lillard poster with the hand signaling a three-pointer, which they deemed as the OK sign, and their Trump derangement syndrome flared in their minds, their faces went red, and their pupils dilated. But check this out, the violent attack on Portland Police East Precinct overnight was organized by an Antifa group, Youth Liberation Front, which is a group that's been around for a long time, and I've seen stories specifically from Andy Neal for years talking about this specific group. They instructed their followers to meet at a nearby park on the east side from the city, far from downtown. They have announced plans to go into the suburbs as well. And of course, they did exactly that. Check out this tweet. Antifa rioters blocking street near Southeast.
Oh man, okay. After this, I'm probably gonna stop. Anyways, guys, I don't have to talk much.
They've been in all kinds of different neighborhoods, vandalizing, being chased out by police, setting up barricades, and causing mayhem and distress to regular folk who are just trying to go about their lives. And
this time, I'm just gonna grab a gun and a few guns and a sniper.
We've seen across the country, people are really starting to turn on them, especially just average everyday Americans. Remember that story that I covered about a week and a half ago where 3 police officers were in the hospital because of laser attacks? Antifa came with very strong laser pointers and had potentially blinded 3 officers permanently, who, like I keep saying, may never get to see their child's face again. That should be the image of Antifa. Look at this. After Antifa were dispersed by police following the attack on East Precinct, they tried to blind a woman at home with lasers and attacked her. Antifa had gone into residential parts in the city after moving away from attacking the federal courthouse. And in this video, the police officers are speaking with a woman who lives in the neighborhood. Maybe she's giving information, who knows what the situation is. And the Antifa cowards are trying to shine the industrial code laser into her eye. What does she have to do with anything? Of course, if you're not with us, you're against us. If you're not on the streets causing a ruckus, you are the enemy. That is the mindset of Antifa. And speaking of them really dispersing across all kinds of different areas, different suburbs, rather than all being in one isolated area right in front of the courthouse, these rioters have been targeting a town in Portland called Eugene. And what we're seeing on police arrest records is tons of violent leftist radicals being arrested in Eugene, Portland. At the end of May, there was a huge riot with tons of destruction in Eugene, and the officers are pursuing justice and arresting a bunch
if
of
this comes find me, I'm dead.
Twitter, once again, he is the absolute legend when it comes to this topic, and pretty much everybody that you see on YouTube that's covering what's going on in Portland are all using him as a direct source. He is the nucleus of everything that's going on there, but you will see tons of cases like this from Eugene, Oregon, where these dweebs are being arrested left, right, and center. Just like last night when they attacked the precinct, a bunch of these guys got pulled off the street and put exactly where they belong, behind bars. And it's really nice to finally see that the Portland State Police is doing their job, at least to the extent that their local officials will allow them to do that. And it proves the president right. He asked Ted Wheeler and the governor of Portland, governors and mayors across the nation, do your job, secure your streets and help the residents. And finally, it's happening, and these Antifa losers are finally getting their just due, at least to a certain extent. They are violent extremists who have done nothing but wreak havoc and sow chaos, destroying everything in their path like a locust swarm. You know, at the end of the day, if the BLM protests was just BLM peaceful protests, no one would have an issue with them. In fact, I'd probably be covering them quite positively outside of the Marxist influence. I'd condemn that wholeheartedly. But what Antifa has done is completely ruined their ability to have a faith on the other side. Everything that they latch onto is destroyed. You know what? It was so they have done nothing but enact violence and, in my opinion, terror across the nation. Stories like this popping up everywhere, specifically, again, on Andy Neo's Twitter. Riders sucker punches a man while other fires are being started in the street. And there's tons of these stories happening every single night where seemingly innocent, random bystanders are being assaulted on the street by these do-nothing weirdos who, frankly, just get a job, work hard, just do something productive with your time. But of course, we know that's never going to happen.